I look back now and I think if only I had had conversations with her sooner, then it would have been so much easier. We would have been so much better prepared. I would have been better prepared for the role. It would have, I think, made things easier because when you wait for that emergency before talking to your parents about their finances, emotions are going to be running higher. And the last thing people want to talk about is finances. And so having that conversation while everyone is calm and there aren't any health issues and ideally before your parents are even in retirement, that that is ideal. That makes things so much easier down the road.
We have a very special guest with us today, Cameron Huddleston. Cameron, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
So, before we go into this, I want to give my listeners a little bit of kind of perspective, some statistics that are pretty, I think, eye opening. In your book, you talk about, I think, in care.com is the first one that you talk about. In a 2016 survey that they did, more than half of those that surveyed would rather talk about sex with their kids than money and aging issues. And we go back to the what is it? I think someone told me this one time. It's called the powdered butt syndrome, which once you've powdered someone's butt, you no longer want to hear their advice on money or sex. And yet here
Exactly.
we are saying that more than half of those surveyed would rather have that discussion. Another one, gobankingrates.com, said 73% of adults had not had a detailed conversation with their parents about their finances. So that's scary. And then this one's even probably more scarier. Fidelity says that 69% of parents expect one of their children to manage their finances, but more than a third of the children that are expected to do that have no idea. I paraphrase a little bit, but yeah. So talk about
Yes.
that a little bit.
Yeah, that I think that fidelity one is especially telling because there is that expectation out there and I just don't think that most adult children ever bother to think about it. And I know I didn't. I was among the majority who did not have detailed conversations with a parent before I had to actually get involved with my mom's finances. And that's why I wrote the book because I didn't want people to make the same mistake I did. My mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease at the age of 65. I was only 35. I had two young kids at the time and honestly, I was thinking my mom was going to be able to help me with my kids and the tables were suddenly turned. Suddenly I found myself in the position of having to help my mom and the first thing I had to do was get involved with her finances. When you have dementia, and you have Alzheimer's, your financial decision making ability is compromised. And that's really one of the first things to go. And it can often be some of the first signs that your parent is having issues with memory loss if they're starting to have trouble staying on top of their finances, paying the bills, making sure those credit card bills get paid every month. Um, and so I found myself in a position where I had to scramble. I had to scramble to get my mom to meet with an attorney to update all of her legal documents, especially that power of attorney, so that I could be named her power of attorney to make financial decisions for her once she was no longer able to. And then I had to play detective to figure out the details of her finances because she was forgetting things. And I look back now and I think if only I had had conversations with her sooner, then it would have been so much easier. We would have been so much better prepared. I would have been better prepared for the role. It would have, I think, made things easier because when you wait for that emergency before talking to your parents about their finances, emotions are going to be running higher. And the last thing people want to talk about is finances. And so having that conversation while everyone is calm and there aren't any health issues and ideally before your parents are even in retirement, that that is ideal. That makes things so much easier down the road as you have to get involved with your parents' finances.
I can't even imagine what that had to have been like. 35, two young kids, and you expect grandma to be able to take care, babysit. And we're in that same situation. We have two kids, and we love the fact that my wife's parents live here in town and they can babysit pretty much. I mean, they're like begging for the kids a lot of times, at least one of them at a time, not both of them, but one at a time. And yeah, that helps out a lot. But then to be thrust all of a sudden into the situation, and you're probably not alone in this, be thrust in the situation where you're taking care of your kids. Now you have to take care of your parents as well.
Right. And it's something we don't want to think about.
Hmm.
No one wants to think about a time when their parents are going to count on them for support or help. No parent wants to ever have to think about having to rely on a child for support because you have always been the caregiver and the provider for that child, and you don't want to be a burden on that child. I do think that most adult children don't think of their parents as a burden if they have to step in and help, but parents are afraid they're going to be that burden. And I'll be honest with you, the burden comes in not preparing your child for that role, for that possibility, for even for the time when you die. And if you haven't prepared a will or a trust and you don't have things in order, it's a burden on your kids to deal with what's left behind. And so that's where the burden comes in. Not necessarily having to reach out to your kids for help, but not preparing them for that role.
As always, if you want more information on retirement, our contact information and calendar link is going to be in the description. And don't forget to smash the notification bell. Hit that. Actually, no, smash the subscribe button, then hit the notification bell in that order. That's kind of how you want to do that, right? That way you can make sure to stay updated every single week on new content to help your retirement. And we also have another YouTube channel. For a podcast called the Retirement Rescue Radio, where we dive deeper into a lot of these topics in a lot more long format style. Once again, just trying to bring you enough content to educate yourself so that you can live the retirement that you deserve. So take care, and we'll see you next week.